right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Beautiful Wednesday morning, and it is Wednesday, May 21st, 2014. That date, or my mentioning of the date, is important because it lets you know if you're listening to a live show or not. If it's Wednesday, May 21st, 2014 on your calendar, then you're listening to a live show, and that means you are invited to call right now and ask John Fuller a question about the law. Maybe you've got some legal circumstances or somebody you know does. John is here to answer those questions. John Fuller is an attorney at the law firm of Fuller and Fuller right here in Ocala. This show is called Legally Yours, and the only other thing I want to say is the phone number. It is the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, 622-622-622. WOCA. Good morning, John. How you doing?
Good morning, Larry. Good morning to all our listeners. And you're right, it is a beautiful Wednesday. We've had a really nice run of pretty weather, so we're really grateful for that.
Yeah. And when I was in the juror room that few weeks ago when I responded to jury duty, the windows were very small and very high. You couldn't really see out.
Oh, well, that may be good. You weren't given to daydreaming or something, but
maybe
in any event, we are pleased to be here live in your studio for our friends that listen to the show, or if it's a new listener. We're happy to talk about any potential legal questions, a problem, if you've been in an accident and have questions in general terms. We're very pleased to discuss that. If there's a specific case and you want to talk with us, we practice at the law firm of Fuller and Fuller here in Ocala and offices in the villages. And if you've been hurt or a loved one has been hurt and you want to make an appointment, please call us. Our office phone number is 352-547-4292, and we'd be pleased to schedule an appointment so we can talk about your specific case in details. You will meet with a lawyer. My partner, who's also my wife, Janet Fuller, does exclusively Social Security disability work. So if that's an area that you have a question in, she'd be glad to talk with you.
Do you know what I don't understand? And by the way, if you're listening and you want to ask John a question, please call. Interrupt me. I want you to, because I want your questions to be answered. But there was a story this week, and it might still be going on. And it's regarding the two deputies. They were out in Summerfield. A man died with an altercation, a young man. Apparently, he had put up a fight when they were trying to stop him from throwing things at cars, and he ended up getting shot and killed by one of the deputies. So that they were... I guess this was 2 years ago, so Supreme Court, does that sound right? Basically, you said, no, we're not going to file charges against the two. So the father of the young man who died is now in court with them. It might be over, but this is a civil suit now for, I think...
wrongful death?
Yeah, I think $75,000 is what he's asking for, something like that. How can you, and this happened with O.J. Simpson, how can you, not that I'm opposed to it, but how can you drag somebody to court for something you've already been found not guilty of?
And that's always a question that can be confusing, and because our Constitution says that you cannot twice be placed in jeopardy for the same crime. You can't be tried twice for the same criminal offense. But criminal law and civil law are two entirely different things. You may be acquitted or the charges may be dismissed in a criminal case, and a set of factual events can give rise to both a potential criminal case and a potential civil case. If someone injures another person by assault and battery, murder, vehicular homicide, whatever, that's a crime. And because our society and the laws say we need to protect society. And if people are going to be going around shooting and hitting, endangering people, we need to prosecute them. We need to get convictions if they're guilty, and they need to be punished so that society is protected from that type of behavior. That's the criminal side of it. The individual who is the recipient of the violent act, the victim, if you will, they have a civil claim. it's a completely separate cause of action, even though it arises out of the same facts. If you are charged with a crime, the prosecuting authorities, whether it's the state attorney in a state crime or the U.S. attorney in a federal crime, has to prove each and every element of that crime beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. A very, very substantial burden, and rightfully so, because we ought not to be taking citizens who are presumed innocent and putting them in jail, taking away their liberty, unless we are able to prove the elements of the offense beyond a reasonable doubt. In civil law, we don't have that high a burden of proof.
Oh, really?
It is the greater weight of the evidence. And you will see lawyers in opening statement. You've probably seen them on television. When you're talking about criminal law and you picture the scales of justice, you start out with the scales tipped in favor of the defendant because there's a presumption of innocence. So the scale is down at the bottom with not guilty as the presumption of innocence, and guilt beyond a reasonable doubt up here at the top of the scale.
Okay.
And the prosecutor, by the weight of the evidence, has to prove every element beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt so that the scales are shifted all the way down up to where you have a guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. In a civil case, the scale starts out equal, just like the scales of justice. And all the person who has been injured through negligence or intentional acts of another, and they are suing to recover damages, what they have to do is prove by the greater weight of the evidence. And the greater weight of the evidence is just tip the scale. All you have to do is just tip it ever so much. So you could have a criminal case where the defendant is found not guilty because the prosecuting authority was not able to meet that heavy burden to convince a jury of their peers that beyond a reasonable doubt they committed that crime. You could have the same trial before a different jury in a civil case, and all you have to do is to tip the scales. And it's much easier to convince somebody that it's more likely than not that something happened than to convince them beyond a reasonable doubt that it happened.
That makes sense, yeah.
So you can be acquitted on the criminal case, you can be sued on the civil case, and you can lose the civil case and win the criminal case. You mentioned the O.J. Simpson case. That's probably the most high-profile classic example of that happening. He was acquitted. He was later tried in civil court and had a large verdict rendered against him.
If O.J. Simpson had been found guilty, would the Goldman civil case have been necessary, or could he have just said, well, he's guilty, I don't need to go to court, therefore...
No, you would have to have
still had a second one, huh?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And it would not have been relevant and would not have been admissible, the results of the criminal case.
Wow.
You still have to go in and prove your case on the evidence. Okay?
That's
because
amazing.
believe it or not, they are convictions that happen in criminal court every day that get reversed by the appellate court because there's reversible error in it. And we've talked about that before with DNA and other things. So each case stands on its own merit, but it's a lot easier to prove a civil claim than to get a criminal conviction.
And the case that's in town right now, I mean, you just have to feel for our law enforcement officers. I mean, there they were. I mean, all they did was tell the guy to lie down on the ground, according to the story, and he did. But then he got up and started fighting with them. So what are they going to do? I mean,
well, I don't know the specific facts of any particular case. It's ironic. A few years ago, well, not more than a few years ago now, quite a few years ago, the legislature in Florida changed the law, and even if you are being wrongfully arrested by a law enforcement officer, you do not have the right to use force to resist even an unlawful arrest. That sounds kind of counterintuitive, and there have been some outrageous cases where law enforcement got the wrong address and the wrong description of the house where they were going to go into to arrest somebody, and they burst through the door in the middle of the night and ran in. The person was scared to death and fought back.
Oh,
and,
wow.
They charged them with battery on a law enforcement officer.
Oh, man. Hopefully they were settled and did, get some kind of compensation. We have a phone call.
Very good.
Good morning. Thank you for calling. You're on the air with John Fuller.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
In the case of not so much O.J. Simpson, but something similar to that, because he's in jail anyways, but let's say a person, after being let go on free in a murder case, a year or two down the road decides to admit that he did the killing and he was guilty. Because it was through the court system and he was let go, can they put him in jail?
I'm sorry if he was tried and acquitted, but later had pangs of conscience and confessed that he was the person. No, the state or the government can't come back and retry him on the charge that they tried him on. Once jeopardy attaches and there is an acquittal, that ends the case, and our Constitution says that you cannot twice prosecute a person for the same offense.
Okay. I have another quick question. My wife locally here is she's an insurance agent, and every 2 years she's required to go to the local college and take so many credits to keep her license alive. Our attorneys, do they have to do the similar kind of a thing?
I'm sorry, didn't understand the question.
My wife's an insurance agent, and every 2 years she has to go to the local college to get so many credits to keep her license valid. Do attorneys have to do something like that to keep their license valid?
Absolutely. You have to have required continuing legal education courses. Every year, you have to send in the certification of having completed those courses. Every 5 years, you have to compile them all, and then they review them. And if you are board certified in an area of the law, you have to have continuing certification hours in the area in which you were certified. So yes, indeed, because the law is a constantly changing, constantly evolving entity, and it takes a considerable amount of time, effort, energy, and money to go to continuing education seminars, attend them. You can now attend some of them on the internet. I don't particularly like them. Maybe it's because I'm a older world guy, but I much prefer going to a live seminar than to try to take these webinars. I've done both, so you can do either one and qualify, but you have to have a certain number of not only substantive law continuing education hours, but you have to have continuing education each year in professional ethics to maintain your license.
Can you be denied a license if you become too old?
There is not a mandatory retirement age for lawyers. There is a mandatory retirement age for judges, but as long as a lawyer continues to take and complete the required continuing legal education courses, he may maintain an active law license for as long as he wishes to. And I was very, very fortunate. For many years, the first employer I had as a law clerk here in Ocala was a lawyer who was well-loved and well-respected throughout the state, whose name was Charles Savage. And Mr. Savage started practicing law in 1921. He went to a jury trial with me that I tried in 1976. You can do the math on how old he was at that point, but his mind was extraordinarily sharp.
Wow.
And I had the benefit and the joy of trying a criminal jury trial with Mr. Savage, who was recognized as one of the deans of the criminal defense bar in the state of Florida. He had been the attorney for the State Road Board. He had served in the Florida House of Representatives. He had served in the Florida Senate. He was an extraordinary trial lawyer with extraordinary skills, and it was a joy for me to try that case with him. Judge Swigert was the trial judge who tragically passed away recently. Judge Swigert was a very hard-working judge with a brilliant mind, and we were starting that trial, and I think at that point Mr. Savage was probably in his 70s. In fact, I'm sure he was. And we were starting that trial at 7 o'clock in the morning and going until 11 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And Mr. Savage was there, and his mind was sharp. His skills were exceptional. And so it depends on the individual. We all know people who can be 80, 90 years old and sharp as a tack, and they're blessed with great good health and vigor and energy.
Yeah.
They've taken care of themselves, and if you can do that and maintain your skill level and take the courses to stay current, then you can do it. Judges have to retire at age 70.
All right. Thank you, Hugh.
Thank
Appreciate
you for your great answers.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. The phone number to call if you'd like to speak to John Fuller right now is 622-9622. Today is Wednesday, May 21st, 2014. If that's your date on your calendar, then you're listening to a live show. It's a good opportunity to get some good advice from John Fuller. And again, the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, 622-9622.
And Larry, I want to mention, this comes up periodically. Sometimes we get off on other subjects, and that's all fine too. But one of the things that affects most of the people that I see who are in a difficult situation are people who are seriously injured in automobile accidents.
Yeah.
And I just want to take a minute to make sure that we don't lose focus on this show, that it is important, it is critical. If you are injured, that you get medical attention immediately, that you get checked out immediately, even if your injuries are not immediately observable, but are in what are called medically an emergent stage. And talk to a lawyer. If you have questions and want to call us, we'll be glad to talk with you and set you an appointment. But before you make any statements, before you sign anything, get photographs of the accident scene, photographs of your car, photographs of the other car. If there are any witnesses that are there, ask them their name and phone number so that you can have your lawyer contact them later. And go get competent medical treatment. Go get checked out and follow up. If you go to the emergency room and they see you and they determine that you are not acutely injured, that doesn't mean that you don't have a serious injury.
Right.
But they see you and release you and tell you to follow up. Well, go to your family doctor if you have one. If you don't have one, if nothing else, go to an urgent care clinic or somewhere where you can see a doctor who can then refer you to the appropriate specialist, whether it be a neurologist or an orthopedic surgeon or somebody who deals with trauma, because a lot of things can be delayed in evolving. And I see it every day, and people can't work. They can't make their house payment. Their personal injury protection is exhausted. You need to go and protect yourself. And we haven't had someone call lately about it. We talked about it a lot over the course of the life of this show. But I just wanted to remind people, call a lawyer. Call us if you care to. If you don't have a lawyer, we'll be glad to talk with you. These cases are handled on a contingency fee basis, which means that if you don't have the money to afford to hire a lawyer and pay them by the hour like businesses do, don't hesitate to call, because there is an accepted standard contingency fee contract approved by the Florida Supreme Court where if a lawyer takes your case, he's not going to, we don't get paid if we don't make a recovery for you. If we do, then we get paid a percentage. But don't hesitate to go contact a lawyer, and it is much better to do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
After you may, and don't make any statements except to cooperate with your own insurance company. Don't make statements. Go talk to your lawyer. Call us if you don't have one. We'll be glad to talk with you and see you. I spoke with a lady yesterday who was in a rather substantial case and was expecting, and it caused potentially significant issues.
Oh, really?
And so, please, to our listening audience out there, don't hesitate to call us if you or a family member, a friend, or a loved one has been injured. And there are other things other than car wrecks. There can be defective premises where people maintain their premises in a defective manner that causes people to fall and break hips. And these are not trivial matters. So I just want to make sure that we didn't lose sight of that. As we get, because it is interesting to talk hypothetically about O.J. Simpson. That's made the news, and that's an interesting subject, and it can illustrate aspects of our system. But the average person, fortunately, is not going to be involved in the criminal justice system. But the chances of somebody getting hurt through the negligence of a third party is a reality of the world we live in. And I just want people to be aware that they have valuable legal rights, and they need to be proactive in seeing that those rights are protected, and we'd be happy to help if they want to give us a call.
So I was in a wreck when I was a much younger guy. I had a 1970 Nova. I loved my car, by the way. And it was rear-ended by a woman who had been drinking, okay? And it made my car non-functional, and the insurance company totaled it. They said it was only worth $500, and so they gave me $500. And I said, I can't replace the car for $500, but that's all it's worth. It was totaled. That's all you get. And so I was at a loss for what to do, and my dad helped me out. But had I known any different, would I have benefited from going to an attorney? Even just to say, I need this insurance.
Well, generally in property damage cases, and most of the cases we handle, we focus on the injuries that go with it, because the property damage, it depends on the language of your policy. You can buy, they're very expensive, a replacement policy where they will replace a vehicle with a like-kind vehicle, but most policies pay you the actual cash value of the vehicle if the value of the vehicle is less than the cost of repair. Most insurance policies, if you read the fine print, it says they have the option to pay you the actual cash value of the vehicle. And if that happens to be an amount that is very, very difficult, to go out and find another 1970 Nova that you could buy for $500.
Right.
You can certainly have litigation over the property damage. Should it have been totaled? One of the things with older cars that they argue that allows them to total it is they can't get parts to repair it. They say, we simply cannot get parts to repair it, and therefore, if it can't be repaired, or if we are getting parts, they're extremely hard to find, and the expense of repairing it is more expensive than the value of the car as a total wreck. So, yes, unfortunately, that happens a lot. And but you can go to court and litigate your property damage claim. If you think the actual cash value is worth more than $500, you could go in, call someone who's knowledgeable about the vehicle. If you think it's repairable for a reasonable value, you could go have that determined in litigation. But basically, the insurance company has the option.
Once again, we're up against the clock. It always goes so fast. Obviously, that's why people hire you. John, thank you so much.
My pleasure. And thanks to our caller, and thanks to all our listeners.
This is WOCA Ocala. We've got to go to Fox News, and we'll be right back.
News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. President Obama addressing troubles at the VA, which is under pressure for a wait time scandal. Also meeting with the VA Secretary Eric Shinseki.
Also at today's meeting, Deputy Chief of Staff Rob Neighbors. Mr. Obama is sending him to Phoenix later today. Phoenix is where we got the first reports of VA hospitals falsifying the amount of time vets had to wait for medical care. We're now told 26 facilities are being investigated over wait times and other issues.
Fox's Wendell Goler. A deadly bus accident could have a Southern California interstate highway closed for hours.
We do have 4 confirmed fatalities.